57 vehicles, you are giving it to parliamentarians. Where is the source? The parliamentarians themselves should challenge that.
Next, TRRC and GDC no opposition. All other parties that doesn't concern you, either UDP or NRP or PPP, they are all in the government. Man, dama against edikali mu nekk $450. Man mosuma si àndata du mosuma sa ànda.
yow xaalis boobu nu mu fa ñëwee loolu nga war a njëkk a laajte because social security institution doo xam ne social security warut a ñàkk a xaalis fi profit social security loolu waxtaani banda la loolu dafa war a automatique.
Barrow lu ma ko ñaan mooy na wàcce 3 years am su demee 5 years dafa am problème leadership bu mu fi bàyyi dafa bon right now amul direction bu correct réew mi ñëpp seen am na disappointment si nguuri Barrow.
benn nit munta jagal réew da ngaa def li nga war a def bàyyi keneen ñu continuer
And thereafter, where did you attend secondary education?
The Gambia Muslim High School.
And are you able to estimate the dates?
79 to 83.
After your secondary education, what did you do next in relation to your career?
I went straight into the military.
Do you recall what year you entered the military?
1984.
Was that during the first intake, is that correct?
The first ever Army of the Gambia.
Can you tell us what motivated you to join the Army?
Coming from the village, when you finish your schooling, the first thing you want to do is to find job to help your parents, and that's what motivated me. I didn't wait for anything. I didn't want to wait and choose. That's why I went straight into the military.
Can you tell us about the rank you had when you started the military?
Recruit.
Now, can you give us an idea of your progression within the Army from recruit until the last rank that you had?
After our training, which was conducted by the British Army Training Team, BATT, and this came about after the 1981 aborted coup. The government decided to have an army, and the British Army were contacted, and they sent in a training team here, which was led by Major Wright and a few other staff. One of the staff members, Sergeant Major Allen, and Sergeant Major Payton. Payton was responsible for tactics and other military training. Sergeant Major Allen was from the Grenadier Guards of the British Army. Those are the guards at the Buckingham Palace. And he was responsible for discipline and foot drill.
So tell us a little bit more about your progress in the Army, how you moved from recruit to the other ranks.
Right after our training, some of us were picked by the British Army training team members as potential instructors. How they chose it, I don't know. And I was one of them. I became the chief Gambian instructor at the Army Training School under the British Army training team. Specifically, I was under Sergeant Major Allen, to the point that people start labeling me Junior Allen. And while I was there, we were promoted to Lance Corporal. Because to be an instructor, you have to have some respect, you have to have some command, values. And if everybody was left with the rank of a recruit, nobody will be answerable to anybody. So because of that, and because everything is based on merit at that time, I was promoted to Lance Corporal and made instructor at the training school. While I was Lance Corporal there, several intakes passed by, like the second intake, third intake, and got promoted to sergeant. And that coincided with the confederation between Senegal and Gambia, and there was this Confederal Army. And I was chosen again as a sergeant in that Confederal Army. The 4th Battalion of the Confederal Army was based in Katong, and I was the platoon sergeant in that battalion. As sergeant there up to 1985, 86, I decided I did not join the Army to remain an NCO forever. NCO means non-commissioned officer. So I had to apply, despite the money, because they were paying more than the normal Army. We were being paid in CFA, and everybody wanted to be part of the Confederate Battalion. But despite that money, I was thinking about my progress, so I applied to come back to the GNA, the Gambian National Army, with the hope that I can make it to an officer. And this was accepted. I came back and then returned to the training school. While I was at the training school, we trained several intakes. A whole lot of intakes I can't mention right now until when the time comes. But just to go ahead with the progression, there was this officer selection course we conduct for potential officers. We call it the cadet course. This officer selection course, usually we go into the files of the recruits or newly passed out recruits and see who has the education level we are requesting for, or that is required to become an officer. And then we will put them together, conduct a course which is called officer selection course, and then whosoever passes that will now be promoted to an officer cadet. That is the white patch on your shoulder. So you are above the NCOs, but you are not an officer yet. You are a cadet officer, you are just there in the middle. This has been going on, and I've been taking part as an instructor, taking them on training, taking them on the assault course, which is one of the things you have to pass. That's the fitness training. You go through several obstacles to determine your fitness in the Army. So once you pass that and you become an officer cadet, then you'll be sent on training either to America, Pakistan, or United Kingdom before you are confirmed second lieutenant. While we were doing that, there was a time I said to my mentor, which is the British Army training team guy, Sergeant Major Allen, I said, look, I think I want to do this course. And he went in to tell the current then Army commander, which is Colonel Ndawinjai, Colonel Momodu Ndawinjai. But the response was not very favorable. Ndawinjai said, no, we do not want all our good NCOs to become officers, because it's the NCO corps that carries the Army. It's not the officer. So this was the response from Ndawinjai. At that time, a lot of people thought maybe it's tribalism, nepotism. No, I did not think it that way. I took it as a credit, because the fact that he said he doesn't want his good NCOs to become officers, I felt proud of that. I think I'm a good NCO, that's why. But nonetheless, I went back to the British Army training Sergeant Major. I told him, look, I'm repeating this to you. I did not join the Army to stay as an NCO forever. So I want to give it a try. So he went back and told Colonel Momodu, well, my man will try. So they put me in the team. I went through the course and I came out first. And he had to go back to Ndawinjai, proud, telling him that my man, he made it. He made it. These are things that are very emotional. Thinking about it, I was not even given the cadet white patch. I was given a second lieutenant straight away because of my experience. I've been training the officer cadets, even to the point of training some second lieutenants when they return from their courses. We teach them tactics, we teach them foot drill, we teach them almost everything, map reading, you name it. So because of that, I was given a second lieutenant straight away and then sent to the United States of America, Fort Benning to be specific. I started with the language course, which they call American language, American English, at the Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio in Texas. And I got a distinguished graduate diploma in that. Then proceeded to Fort Benning, Georgia, specifically Columbus City. That is for the Infantry Officer Basic Course, IOBC. I passed that one also with flying colors. In fact, my results were not given to me or to the Army directly. They sent them to the American Embassy, and I had to receive them from the ambassador. From in the same Fort Benning, I was recommended because of that to do an infantry mortar platoon commander's course. People who are familiar with the military here will know that the mortar is one of the dangerous weapons you can be fighting with without actually seeing the enemy. So I did that course also, which is highly mathematical. But fortunately for me, I scored over 85. And that was also distinction. So I was recommended to do the Special Forces course.
Where did you do the infantry mortar course?
Yes, in Fort Benning, the same Fort Benning. Then my instructor at that time says, I don't want you to go back without doing some of these courses that are very important to us here. I didn't know why at that time. He said, I was recommended to go to the Special Forces School, which is in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to be specific, Fayetteville. And in that school, I was supposed to do everything Special Forces do, but unfortunately, the Gambia government said there was no money. So I did the Civil Affairs and PSYOPs. Civil Affairs Operations is what we call the CMO, Civil Military Operations. When the military will come in during disasters, when the military will come in during wars to win what we call in psychological operations, winning the hearts and minds. Because during war, unless you win the hearts and minds of the people, the population, you can never win that war, no matter how much armed you are. So psychological, this civil affairs was very important. So I decided to go through that one, and I got a diploma in that as well. From there, I did the instructor course again at the same Fort Bragg. That's training of the trainers. Then I returned home in 1989.
Sorry, just to be clear, when did you go to the US? Because I want to know how long you were there before you returned in 1989.
Early 88.
So after you returned back to the Gambia, did your rank change? What did you do next in the army?
Your rank does not change automatically when you return from your courses like that. That is not army. You have to be tried on that rank. You have to be tried on the course you've just completed before they think about promoting you again. And that's what happened to me. When I came, I was still a second lieutenant, and I was posted to Farafene as a platoon commander. To be specific, we named the platoons, all these names of those who fought the World War. They know we have Caladan, Maudok, and some other names. So my platoon was called Maudok, and I was the platoon commander. I had my platoon sergeants and the section commanders and the men. While we were there, the Liberia case came up, and because our president, His Excellency Sadauda, was the chairman of ECOWAS at the time, they had a meeting here, and after the meeting, they decided they are going to deploy a peacekeeping force, or a peace monitoring force. That's why it's called ECOMOC. It's a monitoring group. ECOWAS military monitoring group. That's why it's called ECOMOC. In 1990, August, to be specific. So I was chosen again as one of the platoon commanders to go to Liberia. I did not even have time to stay with the family for long. Went to Liberia as a platoon commander. And when we arrived, we actually got into a ship. The ship is called Tano River, provided by, I think, the Ghanaian, you know what, ECOWAS put everybody in that ship, all of us, without equipment. And once we approached the ports of Liberia, Freetown, Monrovia, the rebels started firing at us. That's the Charles Taylor rebel, from across the street. So you could hear bullets on the mast of the ship, actually. So the captain had to withdraw back to sea. And we stayed there for almost a week, feeding on gari and sugar while they're fighting. Then in the end, our commander had to decide that, look, we'll have to pull out some weapons and fire back in order for us to be able to land. We landed, fortunately, without casualties. We disembark all our weapons and all these things and secure the surroundings, secure the perimeter, and then the men start coming out with our logistics. And I was posted, I can say the Gambian contingent was posted as one of the headquarter guards with the Sierra Leonean contingent. the rest of the army, Nigeria, Ghana, and others that are well equipped, more equipped than us, were sent outside to the perimeter. We are in the headquarters. While at the headquarters there, we get sporadic attacks from rebels. It will not be confrontational, but they will be afar and sending us mortars. And then they'll be firing at us with RPGs, that is a rocket-propelled grenade launcher. Some people will know it as bazooka. They'll put it on your shoulder here and fire. So locally, people will call it bazooka and all kind of things. And we've been there for a while under that, I can say, anxiety, because we really don't know why we're here. We told it's peace monitoring, but we discovered there was no peace. So you cannot even keep it because there's no peace to keep. So an incident happened which became a turning point. While I was there as a guard with other Gambian contingent members at the head office, the then commander, it was a general from Ghana, General, I can't remember his name, but he was the first contingent commander for ECOMOG from Ghana, a lieutenant general. He called for a meeting of the two parties, Prince Johnson and Samuel Doe's party, because then Charles Elo was already out of the city. He was on the city outskirts, and he was not willing to talk to anybody. But these two parties were willing to talk. So he called Prince Johnson's team and Samuel Doe's team. Samuel Doe's team arrived first. We received them. Samuel Doe went up to meet the commander. While we are down there, Prince Johnson arrived with his team and started disarming Samuel Doe's soldiers immediately, right at the ECOMOG headquarters, and shooting them, killing them, and went up to the commander's office, shot Samuel Doe, and then carried him on the shoulder, put him in his presidential vehicle, and took him away. So while we were there, because of that incident, the commander had to be changed. The Ghanaian general had to be replaced by General Dongonyaro from Nigeria. When Dongonyaro came, that was the time we all felt like we were real soldiers. We were real soldiers. Dongonyaro said, look, there's no peace here to keep, so there's no point carrying your weapons. We painted all our helmets green now, ready for fight. So it turned into a peace, intervention or enforcement. So we were deployed. Fortunately and unfortunately for me, I would say unfortunate for us, my platoon was selected again. I've been always on the other side of the thing. Every time they will select me. For what reason, I don't know. My platoon was selected again to be detached from Gambians totally and attached to the Ghanaians, because the Ghanaians are in the battlefield. So the rest of the two Gambian platoons stayed at the headquarters. I went to the battlefield. And I can say here with confidence that my platoon was the only platoon that actually fought the war in Liberia, in the Gambian contingent. And we joined the Ghanaian battalion. My commander was General Dankwa in Ghana. Maybe he's now retired. He was my battalion commander. And we started moving out of Monrovia. We kicked the rebels out of Painesville. From Logging Town, Painesville, and other places, we kicked them out of that place and then got to the stadium where they had all their logistics. The rebels had their food, their ammunition, the ladies they have with them who cook for them or for other reasons, I don't know, all at the stadium. They call it the SK Door Complex, Samuel Canyon Door Complex. The stadium is just like the Gambian stadium here, also built by the Chinese, the same configuration. So when we got them out of that stadium, they had all their weapons and their food stuff there, so they did not give us peace. They want to take back the stadium. So it is like everyday fight. They'll be attacking us every night, every morning. So
did something happen to you during that time?
Yes, something happened to me. During that time, my post was under the scoreboard, directly under the scoreboard. People who are familiar with the stadium, the scoreboard, there's always this opening there where people come through. That was my post. We man everything with sandbags, thick enough to prevent small arms fire. But during this firefight with the rebels one morning, very early in the morning, they attack us from the hills. If you're familiar with Liberia, you know that the stadium is just down there, like in a valley, and surrounded by hills. One fine morning, very, very early, these guys attack us, Charles Celos rebels, from the hills. So they were just dropping the rounds on us there like that, as easy like rainwater or so. So we were fighting back so that they would not recapture the stadium from us. During that time, I was at my post under the scoreboard. I saw a flash coming from the hills. And I jumped on one side, on my right side. My left foot was left behind. This flash happened to be an RPG round. This rocket came and hit the sandbags, scraped my leg all off, and then landed in the middle of the football field, the pitch. Then I continued firing. I didn't know something happened to me. I didn't feel any pain. Until when the firefight died down, I turned to my orderly, who was J.D. Mendy. I don't think he's around in the country now. He's a one-man Jago boy. And I collapsed. That's the time I realized that something happened to me. But before that, at the ports, my platoon, when we were attacked there, that's where Lance Corporal Lamin Bojang died, the medic. Because he felt, he's our medical man there, but he felt being with me in my platoon was safer. So he always moves with me everywhere I go. So my platoon was attacked, my platoon side was, and he was killed. My orderly, Sama Jao, who is also from URR, was also killed on the same day. Now, it was after all these two people died, that was when I was moved to the front. And by then I was already hardened. I didn't care about anything. I lost my orderly.
Please take your time, Mr. Camby.
Yes, at the front, I did not care anymore. Just went fighting. And at the stadium, that's where I lost my leg. I was evacuated to the field hospital. And then I saw myself in Freetown in the end, at the Wilberforce Hospital in Freetown. And that's where I met a lot of Gambians. One like your lead counsel, then he was going to school. They used to come and visit me at the hospital. And while I was at the hospital again, the government says at that time that they are not bringing their casualties home because it's going to create a problem back home. People will think their sons are dying. So I was left there to languish in Freetown, in the hospital where they don't have any medicine apart from hydrogen peroxide for dressing my wounds. Because I had my weapons with me, I had my AK-47 and my rounds. One day, one fine morning, the liaison officer who was Lawrence Jara, Captain Lawrence Jara, he was the liaison officer between us and in Liberia and the army here in the Gambia. They came to visit me with Mr. B.O. Fofana, who was then the High Commissioner of Gambia to Sierra Leone. The moment they reached my private ward, I took out my gun. I said, everybody dies or I leave for Gambia today. You know. So the nurses jump on me, everybody in that hospital jump on me, but they could not still take my weapon from me because that was the end. I wanted to come back to Gambia to get my treatment. So B.O. Fofana said, look, we have to arrange something. Then B.O. had to contact British Airways then. And British Airways said, no, they cannot carry me with my weapon. And I also said, no, I'm not surrendering my weapon to anybody. And this is how they went to Ghana Airways. Ghana was part of ECOWAS, ECOMOP, so Ghana accepted me. Ghana Airways accepted me with my weapon. I got into the Ghana Airways flight, came to the Gambia, and then again, I was languishing here. Nothing happened. Nobody cared about treating me. Nothing happened, absolutely. I was just reporting to physiotherapy. All the time, physiotherapy, nothing else. I was walking on crutches. Everybody witnessed that. Even during the parade of ECOMOG soldiers, most people saw me in front of the parade walking on my crutches, those who witnessed that parade. Until again, another incident happened. Soldiers and officers in Farafenya camp had a problem with one particular soldier who was charged, and he was supposed to be brought to the headquarters for orders. On their way, they had an accident at Kafuta. Nobody was there to attend to them. Some drivers came and told me, hey, your military people have an accident at Kafuta. With my leg like that, with my crutches, I was able to drive my car. I was pressing the clutch with the crutches. I drove to that site, and with the help of some people, we got them in my car, and with other vehicles, we brought them to the Brikama Health Center. That accident was Dabo Jaju. He was a lieutenant just returning from UK. He just finished his course in Sandhurst. Dabo Jaju is from Katong, Kendaka J. I learned he's now with the SIS as Human Resources. You have Captain Johnson, James Johnson, and Johnson, Kendaka J, Dabo Jaju, and the lady they were bringing as a witness. The lady got her leg broken. Captain Johnson got his waist dislocated. Kendaka J landed on his head, and he couldn't do anything. Dabo Jaju had a chest injury. I don't know what happened to him, but he could not breathe. So when we brought them, he was referred to the RVTH immediately, and people like Dr. Jones and other doctors went in the room, tried to apply suction to get the blood out of internal bleeding, but he couldn't make it. He died. Johnson, Kendaka, because of that accident, approval was made for them to go for overseas treatment. Luckily for me, I was put among them to go. That was the only time they considered me. So we all went to the UK for treatment. And those who need to be admitted were admitted, and I was admitted for some time. Dr. Jones invited all his colleagues. He had about 7 of his colleagues looking at my leg, orthopedic surgeons, neurosurgeons, and bone marrow specialists, plus all kinds of dietitians. They all looked at my foot. Because when I was in Sierra Leone, they were dressing me, and these small particles of bone that were all shattered, I could see them actually removing the bones and throwing them away. So because of that, some pieces were missing. So they had to use cartilage to reconstruct my leg, and thank Allah and Dr. Jones and his team that I'm working today.
After your return to the Gambia, how long did it take until you received the treatment in the UK?
Well, I wouldn't remember exactly how many months or what, but I've been here for a long, long time until when this accident happened.
And following the treatment that you received in the UK, was anything else done for you when you returned to the Gambia?
Following the treatment, nothing has been done yet. And for the past 22 years, I've been following it up. Compensation, medical board, nothing has been done until a few months to the impasse when I contacted somebody who was close to Jammeh, and then they asked the RVTH to set up a board for me, and the board recommended something like 25% disability. I still cannot get that check. I don't know what's happening. Still no money, no compensation, nothing.
So I just want to take you back to the period when you returned to the Gambia. After your first deployment to Liberia, you came back, you were injured, you went to London, and then you came back to the Gambia. Did you hear anything in relation to any mutinies that occurred in the Gambia around that time?
Actually, while I was at home in Brikama, sometime I can't mutiny going on. The captain can be is seen in the Pajero leading them. I said, well, this was how bad the accusations were at that time. I had about a mutiny, yes. I didn't go there. I didn't even know that they went to Makati Square or they went to State House or so. But I know they were my people who said they did not receive their balance of payment from Liberia.
Do you know which payment they were referring to?
Yes, during that time, ECHA was, what they were paying us was like $3 a day. That's $90 in a month. Sufficient food or correct food to eat. Because I can tell you here, while I was in the front, anytime it's food time, for example, dinner, they will delay it in such a way that when I call to say, what is happening to the men's dinner, they'll say, well, the headquarters say no vehicle movement after 6 p.m. So there is no food. I had to get gari and sardine. We use dry gari and put sardine on top of it, just the oil of the sardine, and eat.
Do you know what happened to the soldiers who mutinied in relation to monies owed to them?
I can't say exactly whether I know what happened to them, because I didn't go there, and that time I've not started work yet, so I will not be able to answer that question.
And just to be clear, you didn't hear anything about what happened to the soldiers. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, that will be hearsay, and I'm under oath, I don't want to speak on hearsay.
Just so you know, hearsay is allowed here so long as you explain the basis of the information you have. But please proceed.
No, I just want to be clear that as a matter of principle, I don't discuss hearsay.
Okay, well, we'll move on from that issue. At the time of the 1994 coup d'etat, what was your rank?
I was a captain.
And as a captain at that time, did you have what was your specific role in the army?
Staff officer responsible for logistics at the army headquarters.
Where was the army headquarters located at that time?
7 Marina Parade.
Can you give us an idea of the other roles within the army headquarters at the time? You've told us you were in charge of logistics. Can you tell us about the other roles?
Well, if you insist, although I'm not sure it's relevant, but if you insist, yes, the army headquarters.
It is relevant for me. Please go ahead.
Okay, the army headquarters was structured. Like, you have the army commander's office. He has his orderly, he has his driver, he has his what we call ADC. And the army commander's ADC then was this, the major general at the moment, the deputy CDS, Yankuba. The deputy CDS right now was the ADC to the army commander, the Nigerian army commander. And we have the training, the operations department, which was also led by a Nigerian colonel. And you have like Conte, Major like Conte under him. And you have Major Omar Fai also under that section. My area is the admin and quartering. They call the guy Colonel Al-Hassan Akoji, and they call him Colonel AQ. AQ means admin and quartering. So we were responsible for all logistics and administration of the army, and I was logistics, and Babukar Jata was admin. We shared the same office. Babukar, who ended up being the army chief of staff. Then you have other sections like the orderly room, which is also led by Sergeant Major. That is the registry, we call it in other departments. So you have the INT section as well, led by another officer. That is the military intelligence cell. And you have the transport, which, they have an officer responsible for transport, like logistics, me, but the transport officer is based at Yundum Barracks, where the vehicles are. So the army headquarters was structured like that. It's just basically administrative staff.
So who was the head of the army in 1994? Who was the main army commander? Or the overall army commander, I should say.
Well, the army commander technically was the Nigerian who was the army commander. And we had Gambians working on them. All the battalion commanders are Nigerian as well.
Can you give us their names, the name of the army commander and the names of the battalion commanders?
The army commander who started NATAC, NATAC is Nigerian Army Training Group, was Dada, Abubakar Dada. Abubakar Dada was, I think something happened, and then he was supposed to be replaced by Guadabe. This Guadabe came for a familiarization tour, and before he could take up his job in full, the coup d'etat happened.
You also mentioned that the battalion commanders were Nigerian. What were their names?
Well, I can remember one of them, Odunsi, who was at Farafenye. The other one, I can't remember his name, but he was the battalion commander at Yundum Barracks, because we had only two battalions, Farafenye and Yundum. I can't remember his name.
At that time, who were the most senior Gambians holding command positions in the army?
At the time of the coup d'etat, Major Omar Faye, Lai Conte, they were the most senior, and Babkar Jatta. Captain Wilson. You know, seniority in the army sometimes is by rank and sometimes is by the time you join the army. You could have 3 captains, 4 captains, and one of them is senior. So it's been like that. So Wilson, Babkar Jatta, Lai Conte, Fabakar Sise, he's late now, and say Omar Faye.
You mentioned Colonel AQ, who was your supervisor. Who were the other commanders based at the army headquarters?
Like I say, I can't remember their names, but there was one responsible for intelligence and another one responsible for operations and training. Those are the ones working with Major Lai Conte and so.
Does the name Akoji mean anything to you?
That's my supervisor. He's Al-Hassan Akoji.
Also known as Colonel AQ, that's correct?
Colonel AQ is an appointment title.
So he was also known by that title, is that correct?
In the military, you have the rank. You can be a colonel, and your appointment is operations officer or director of logistics or so. So those are appointment titles. So the colonel is the rank. So if you say Colonel AQ, it's just an appointment title for him. That is his appointment. He is responsible for quartering and administration, but his rank was a colonel.
Precisely. So if we go back to your role as head of, as the person in charge of logistics, who were some of the people under your direct responsibility, or your direct supervision, I should say?
One of the areas is transport. We all know transport logistics, and accommodation, feeding. These are all under me. Uniforms, procurement of uniforms, and if there is any donation from donor countries, vehicles, ammunition, and so, I'm usually responsible to receive those things after the Ministry of Defense have confirmed everything. Then, and when the amalgamation happened, Gendarmerie was disbanded. I will not call it disband. When they were asked to choose between the army and the police, most of them went to the police. Very few came to the army. Somebody like Sadibu Hydra, he was a lieutenant in the gendarme. When he was coming to the army, we said, no, your rank is not equivalent to a lieutenant in the army, so you have to revert to second lieutenant, and he accepted. That's why he joined us in the army. And there was a cabinet paper that approved the transfer of the complete unit of the military police from Zandam to the army. And I had to transact that. I was responsible for that transaction, and that military police commander was Yahya Jammeh, with Sergeant Jassy, who is now a lieutenant, with his complete team, and they had one vehicle, a Mitsubishi double cabin L300. And I transacted that move. I signed the documents, and I even had to have a slight problem with some commanders in the gendarmerie that the vehicle will not go. I said, no, the cabinet paper indicates the whole unit must come. And I finally got the whole unit, and Yahya Jammeh transferred to the army as military police, the head of the military police unit, and directly under me. He used to report to me.
You told us that when Sadibou Haidara came into the army, his rank changed from lieutenant to second lieutenant because the systems are different. What about Yahya Jammeh? Did his rank stay the same?
Yes, his rank stayed the same because he was coming with a unit. He was a unit commander.
How would you describe your relationship with Yahya Jammeh at the time? This is prior to the coup d'etat.
When he initially came, he was, well, he is known for disobedience. We all know that. Stubborn, strong-headed. So he was not taking instructions, readily. However, the straw that broke the camel's back was the soldiers went on an exercise and apprehended some people with cannabis in their vehicle. And this vehicle was arrested, taken to the military police where he was. And he started using that vehicle, driving it around in town. I had to call him and say, you must stop. So I stopped him from driving that. Since that day, we had this animosity. He didn't like my face again.
Apart from that incident, did you have any other interactions in relation to the military?
Can you say that again?
Actually, let me rephrase that. At some point while you were in the military, were you asked to move to another part of the barracks or to a different barracks?
Yes. Prior to my appointment as the staff officer at the Army headquarters, I was requested by the battalion commander in Farafenye, who said he went through our records and saw that I was in Farafenye and I was competent, and he also wants competent officers in his battalion, and he wants me back in Farafenye. And I refused. I told him, no, I spent all my life in Farafenye. It's time for some other officer to go there. I'm not going there. And because I was also injured, so I don't want to go there injured.
So what happened after that?
Well, he insisted, and he was adamant that I must go. I was also saying, I'm not going anywhere. And nothing official happened until one day Yahya Jammeh called me as military police. He said, did you hear that? He said, you have deserted the army, and wherever the military police see you, you should be arrested. I told him, but you know my home, you know my house. Go ahead and arrest me. Then he told me, leave them, they are fools. They don't know what they are talking about.
So he never arrested you, is that correct?
No.
Did your relationship change after that?
I was friendly with everybody in the army. I never had a problem with a soldier or an officer throughout my career in the army. You wouldn't believe it, but that's the fact.
Well, let's come to the events of the actual coup d'etat. Do you recall that particular date, like when the coup d'etat occurred?
I don't think anybody can forget that. 22nd July 1994.
And do you recall on which day of the week it occurred?
A blessed Friday.
Can you tell us what happened that day?
Well, I wouldn't be able to tell you what happened that day. I can tell you what happened to me that day.
Precisely. What happened to you that day?
I was going to work as usual. We had one vehicle allocated to us officers at the headquarters, which is a Renault 12, and the number was GNA 10. Usually it will pick Babakar Jata, pick Captain Wilson, and pick me at my residence at Cape Point because I was the last person. It will pick them from their houses. I live at Cape Point and in the official quarters. So when they came to pick me that day, we all went. We got to the bridge. We were stopped by soldiers. And I asked them, what is the problem? They said, go and answer to our leaders at Federa Barracks. I said, what do you mean by your leaders? So I turned around and looked at Babukar. I said, Babukar, is this the exercise with the Americans, the American Navy? Babukar said, no, we have not even coordinated that yet. We have not started anything. I said, but what I'm saying, these guys are carrying life around. It cannot be an exercise. Because they had the AK-47 with 2 magazines strapped together, and you could see one magazine is in the weapon, and the other one, you could see the rounds inside it. I looked at the rounds. I told them, look, these are life rounds. Whatever is happening, I don't know. So the soldier, again, whom I can't remember, said, look, go and answer to our leaders at Federa Barracks. So that's how we turned back.
Did the soldier tell you who he was referring to, who were their leaders?
No names were mentioned.
Do you recall around what time of the morning this occurred?
The time we go to work. It's around 8:30.
Thank you. So you said after that you turned around. Where did you go next?
I went home, and the driver dropped the orders to their various places. I don't know where they went to, but I definitely went home.
So at that time, you felt that what occurred at the bridge was unusual. What was going through your mind when you were back at home?
I started thinking, and I started thinking to myself, if there is going to be any exercise, I would be in the thick of it, because logistics, I provide them with all the logistics, but nobody has said anything about exercise, so what's going on? Then, as the bird flying over will drop the information, I also heard from people that there is a coup d'etat, and then I had the announcement on the radio. I had a small radio with me. I had somebody's voice there, whether it's Captain Sonko, whether it's Basir Barrow, I don't know, but somebody announced to say that there is a coup d'etat. That's the first announcement. I can't remember one of them, who this guy is. I think it's Sonko, Captain Sonko, because when he finished in English, he started speaking in Wolof. His Wolof was not very good, just like me. We're from the village. So I recognized his voice as Captain Sonko. That's how I know there is a coup d'etat.
Do you recall around what time you heard that announcement on the radio? Was it long after you returned home?
Not very long, not very long. I can't remember exactly what time, but not very long.
You told us that at the time the army was controlled by Nigerian commanders, or led by Nigerian commanders. Did you speak to any Nigerian commanders?
I did not speak to any Nigerian commander. Then I decided I cannot abdicate my duties, so I left my home to the Colonel Eku's residence, because then the commander was not on the ground. The army commander himself was not here. Like I said, Dada was supposed to leave and to be replaced by Guadabe, so there was no commander on the ground at the moment. So Colonel Eku was like the de facto commander. Even though there was no appointment, there was no force order to say he is the commander, but he was the most senior. So I went to him, and because he was my supervisor too, and I went to him, then we started now finding out what is the problem.
Did you go to Colonel AQ's house on your own, or did you go with other people?
I went there alone. This I can confirm.
Can you tell us where Colonel AQ's house was, residence was located at the time?
There's this road opposite Senegambia Hotel, and the house belongs to one Syria Cisse. I actually rented those houses when the NATAC came. CDSC was a businessman, and I had to rent 3 compounds from him to accommodate our Nigerian officers.
When you arrived at Colonel AQ's residence, did you meet anyone else there apart from the colonel himself?
This is where the problem is. I would not recall everybody I saw there, but I know Mamma-Jamma was there, so I couldn't remember any other person. But Mamma-Jamma, I vividly remember.
Do you recall if the people that you were with earlier that day, so Captains Ben Wilson and Babakar Jatta, were there?
Babakar could be there. I'm on the oath, I don't want to say, but Wilson, definitely, I did not see him there.
And again, I know you said you can't remember precisely who's there, but I just want to ask directly, do you recall if there were other Nigerian commanders there when you arrived?
No, I can't recall that.
So can you tell us what happened at Colonel AQ's residence? Did you have a conversation with him?
Not much. When I finally decided, look, I can't just sit down here forever, I told him I was going. He told me, look, if these boys are really what I think they're doing, if you go, all of you senior officers will be killed. Maybe because of his experience in coup d'etats in Nigeria. But I decided I have to go.
Do you know if anyone there decided to go to either Federa Barracks or to where the coup plotters were at that time?
Yes, Captain Mamma-Jamma also left. So wherever, I don't know which position, but he left us there, and then I don't know where he went to.
So apart from what Colonel AQ said to you, did he issue any sort of orders at that time?
Not to me.
Apart from what he said, did he provide any other information about what was happening?
Nope.
So you left his residence. Can you tell us what happened next? Where did you go?
I went to my house, changed from the walkout dress I was wearing, I got into camouflage with the full knowledge now that this is what is happening. So I got into my camouflage dress and came out on the small roundabout at Bakau New Town, Bakau Cape Point Tourist Market area. There's a small roundabout there. When I got to the roundabout, I saw a vehicle coming, a Mitsubishi pickup vehicle. Then I stopped the vehicle, I said, I need to get to Banjul. This happened to be my own teacher, Mr. Habib Jammeh. Then he was working for GPTC, Gambia Public Transport Corporation. So I told him, sir, I know you are my teacher, but there's a problem in the country. He said, yes, I know. I need your vehicle, but I will definitely return your vehicle to you. So I took the vehicle from him. I drove with headlights on, with double hazard lights, and then crossed the bridge. Nobody stopped me. Got into State House, nobody stopped me. Parked the vehicle, went straight up. When I asked the guys, where are they? They told me they are upstairs. So I went upstairs. I found Yahya Jammeh sitting there. There was no Sana Sabali, no Edward, no Sadib Hydra. Yahya was there alone with Almamo Mane, the late, and Musa Jammeh, the late, and Buba Jammeh. Buba Jammeh, I think he's now in Europe. Buba was the oddly at that time, and Musa and Almamo and some other guys were security to him because they all came from Zandam, so they know each other. So there was no army, a typical army guy with him, apart from Buba Jammeh. So all the rest were members of Zandam he knew and trusted. So I climbed up there, I found him sitting there, then he explained to me what happened, that they have taken over the country, and Jawara is free to come back as a senior citizen, but not as president. Then, while we were there...
Sorry, just to... When you say he told me, who are you referring to?
I already said when I went up, only Yahya Jammeh was there, no other council members. So it's Yahya Jammeh, of course.
You have mentioned other people who were present, such as the late Mamma-Jamma and others. So your testimony is that Yahya Jammeh is the one who spoke to you and said that. Is that correct?
Obviously, in the military, I wouldn't have asked any of those people. They were NCOs, very junior to me, so the only person I can speak to was a fellow officer.
Well, we've already seen a lot of unusual things happen that day, such as junior soldiers at the bridge telling you to go and speak to their commanders at the barracks. But we need to be clear for the record, so that's very helpful. What happened after Yahya Jammeh told you that?
He told me to stay with him, and I stayed.
You said that when you first arrived, you did not see any council members. You stayed with Yahya Jammeh. Did you see any other council members that day?
Of course, after everything else, Yahya will go down sometimes and will come back up, and when he's down, we were together, and the other council members were there on that day.
Can you give us an idea of what was happening at State House that day? What types of discussions were taken? As State House Chief of Staff, what were your responsibilities?
Nothing on paper.
Verbally or in action?
Right, I was responsible for all logistics, as that was my main job in the Army headquarters. No JD, no job description, just verbally do this, I do it. And it's like I have to ensure all vehicles, all government vehicles are collected from ex-ministers, permanent secretaries, and everybody else, and pack all of them at the then Public Works Department. I was working with late Uncle Badujasi on that. We pack all the vehicles, and I make sure the oddly close to the council members were all given brand new uniforms and boots and so. And then also allocate accommodation to the council members. And those accommodations were the same accommodations the Nigerian officers were living in. Those are the ones I allocated to the council officers. Yankuba Toure and Sana Sabali and others. Edward chose his own accommodation. That is the accommodation they call State House number 2 at Bakau.
So apart from Yahya Jammeh, was any other council member staying at State House?
No, no other council member was staying at State House.
Did you hear anything during your time at State House? Did you hear anything in relation to the former cabinet ministers?
Like I say, I don't work on hearsay. Did I know? I know the former cabinet ministers have been arrested, and they are somewhere around the NIA premises.
How did you know that?
As State House Chief of Staff, I did my job. I went around looking for things and asking questions.
And what were you told in relation to the cabinet ministers?
They are arrested, and they are at the NIA premises.
Did you know which cabinet ministers were detained at the NSS?
Yes. Sorry to say NIA, it was NSS, yes. And the cabinet ministers there, I can remember a few of them. I don't remember all of them. I can remember a few. OJ was one of them, Omar Jallo. Late Kamabaji was one of them. And there was a parliamentary secretary who said he was there for his own safety, even though he was not a minister, Famandu Sanyang. I remember those ones.
Do you know how long they were detained at those premises?
No, I wouldn't know because I didn't know what time they were arrested.
Were they eventually released?
Yes, they were eventually released based on my advice to Jammeh, because that time he was listening to me. The initial days, I told him, the two of us were sitting in the upstairs around 7 o'clock or so before the Maghrib prayers. I told him, keeping these ministers here will not serve you any purpose. You've done a bloodless coup. Why don't you just release them to go back to their families? And if you need them, you can always get them. You can take their travel documents, but keeping them here, you're getting food from the Atlantic Hotel every day to feed them. When somebody gets sick, you have to get medicine. Why not just allow them to go back to their houses? He accepted, he agreed, and I walked down with him on foot with his own security, just the two of us, no other senior officer, no council member. We went to the NSS premises. He addressed them, and before releasing them finally, the late Kamabaji said to him, you people are young, you've taken over the country fine, but please, I beg, do not change the national anthem. You can change anything you want to change, but do not change the national anthem because it's a prayer to the country. Late Kamabaji told him that. And he told Kama, yes, I will not change the national anthem. Then he looked at Famandu and said, what are you doing here? Are you also a minister? No, Famandu said, I'm here for my own safety. Then OJ jokingly said to us, no, he's our boy. If we need to buy attire or something, that's Momalende Yoni, you know, in the local language. That's Famandu Sanyang. Then the ministers were all released that day. But from my position as chief of staff at that time, I was also told Hassan Jallo was arrested. But Hassan was not among these people. So I inquired, only to find out that Hassan was locked up in a room at the army headquarters in Marina Parade, all by himself. He would have died there if nobody knew he was there, because he was there alone. So somebody directed me, I can't remember which soldier, and we opened the door, we found Hassan there too. So I released Hassan Jallo as well.
Do you recall how long after the coup this incident happened, the release of the former cabinet ministers?
I can't exactly say when, but it was not long when I got to them. Maybe the first week or so.
Were the other council members aware of this release of the cabinet ministers? Were they consulted, for instance?
No, they were not consulted by me, and they were not consulted by Jammeh. We just walked down and went and released them. And that brought a lot of animosity between me and them, especially Edward and Sana, because they didn't tell me, but one of their soldiers came to me and said, sir, you need to be very careful. They are not happy with you releasing the ministers.
Did you notice any change in their behavior towards you?
Yes, they stopped saying good morning. Even if they came by, they would not say good morning, even though they are council members, but I was their senior. I recruited all of them, one by one, from recruit stage as a recruit. For them to become officers, I was their instructor. So that respect should have been there, but they were not even greeting me since that thing happened. So I also started smelling rat.
Do you recall how long you stayed as chief of staff?
Until my arrest.
Did you leave the State House at any point while you were chief of staff?
Yes, I think it's the second week. The early days of the coup, I've not seen my family for that whole number of days. So I told Jammeh, could I go and visit my family for this weekend? And he said, oh, certainly you can go and come back on Monday, or Sunday evening, sorry. So I left while I was in my house that day at Cape Point. The following day was Saturday, yes. Lanto Montamba came to me with his vehicle. He said, you are wanted at the State House. The chairman wants you there. You are going somewhere. I told him, okay, you can go. I'm coming. I had my car. He said, no. He said, I should go with you. I said, Lang, go, because I was senior to him. I personally posted him to Federa Barracks as the commander. When all these things happened, as chief of staff, I took Lantombon to Federa Barracks as commander. I took Omar Bimbai to Yundum Barracks as commander and allocated them with SUV vehicles each. So when he started talking to me in this way, I said to myself, why? Why would somebody junior to me talk like that? I told him, go, I'll come. He said, no, they said I must go with you. I said, who? He said, well, the council members called me to say I should go with you. The chairman is going with you somewhere. I said, then wait for me. I went in, changed my dress, put on my camouflage uniform, and got into his car. We drove to the State House. Once we got to the State House, my usual routine is I'll just climb up straight away to Jammeh. This time, as I stepped my first foot on the steps, there was this soldier, I can still remember, he's called Amin Gassama. He's now an imam in Atlanta, Dakar, in Georgia, in America. He had rounds all over his body, just like the Rambo style, and was carrying an LMG, which is unusual. LMGs are usually light machine gun. Usually you use them on the ground, not with you like that. But that time he was a tough guy, and then he had rounds all over his body. He stopped me and said, no, sir, you cannot go up. He said, you wait for him down here, you are going somewhere. So I stopped.
I note the time, it's 10 minutes to the break. So we can stop there and then continue after the break, and I'll cede the floor to the commissioners for questions. Thank you, Mr. Kambi.
Thank you very much, Counsel, for that exchange with the witness. Thank you very much, Mr. Kambi. Commissioners, do you have any questions now, or would you want to wait until the end of his testimony? I think that's the case. If there are no further questions, we would take a 30-minute break and come back. Well, let's come back at 12 noon. That is all right. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.